It was one of the most tragic stories from 20th century Marquette. And for 75 years, it was also an unsolved mystery. One Wednesday afternoon, an 8-year-old boy came home from school, changed his clothes, and went outside to play. His family never saw him alive again. While it may sound like a plot from a best-selling mystery or a ripped from the headlines TV movie, it actually happened in Marquette in March of 1944 to a young boy named Billy Powers. Billy was a third-grade student at the old St. John's School in Marquette, a block away from where he lived with his grandparents. His dad, William, was serving in the Army, while his mother was living in Detroit. He came home from school on that fateful Wednesday, changed clothes, and went out to play in the snow. He was observed by several people during the next hour, including at the 5th Street Railroad crossing, where he was noticed in the company of an older boy. When he failed to return home that night, his grandparents grew concerned and notified authorities. Over the next few days, searchers combed the city, looking through vacant buildings, garages, even the Lower Harbor ore dock, but found no trace of Billy. They asked bus drivers and train conductors if they had seen the boy. None had. They searched through the wreckage of the Piggly Wiggly grocery store downtown, which had burned down several days earlier, just in case Billy might have fallen into a flooded cellar. They even contacted his mother in Detroit, who had said she had not heard from him in some time. Police were stumped. Billy was a bright kid who, in the words of then Police Chief Don McCormick, knew the city like the back of his hand. They talked to Billy's friends, who said they knew of nothing out of the ordinary. They also could not help police in determining the identity of the older boy who had been with Billy at the railroad crossing. Over the next week, the search intensified. Billy's picture was published in every UP newspaper, and WDMJ radio broadcast updates to the search, even putting his grandparents on in an attempt to contact anyone who had any information. The FBI joined the investigation, while Billy's father, William, received an emergency furlough to return home. City residents also flooded the police department with tips, overheard gossip, and guesses about who that older boy may have been. But for several months, no new relevant information was uncovered regarding Billy. Then, on May 1st, 1944, a Marquette father and son were fishing in Lake Superior by Gaines's Rock and noticed something floating in the water. Pulling it to shore, they discovered that it was a body and called authorities. Immediately, police determined that it was the body of Billy Powers. The coroner found no sign of foul play on Billy's body, aside from a couple of superficial bruises. They had no idea how he got into the water. The currents in the area were not very strong, so his body obviously hadn't traveled very far. Unless they could find the older boy, they concluded, they may never know what happened to Billy. And they never were able to uncover the identity of the only person who may have witnessed what happened to Billy Powers. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the only tragedy in the Powers family in 1944. 3 months after his son died, William Powers had to write home to tell his parents that his brother, John, had been shot and killed while serving in the army in France. He was the victim of a Nazi sniper while standing in line to get his lunch. For over 75 years, the mystery of Billy Powers remained just that, a mystery. Then, in 2021, I wrote a newspaper article about the case, and the morning it was published, I received a phone call from a woman who had a story to tell. She was a young girl in March of 1944, and one day her brother came home without his mittens. These were the kind of mittens that were connected by a string so that you could run them through your jacket and not lose them. When her mother asked her brother where his mittens were, her brother broke down crying and told her that he had been playing on the ice of Lake Superior with Billy Powers when Billy fell through. The woman's brother pulled his mittens out of his jacket and tried to fish Billy out of the water with them, but he failed. He then ran home, where his mother asked him about the mittens. After hearing what happened, his mother said, "We're never to talk about this again." And the woman who told me the story said, they didn't. But once the 2021 newspaper story came out, she felt that she should share what she knew, at least as far as the identity of that mysterious older boy. An older boy who apparently tried his best to save the life of 8-year-old Billy Powers.